Your Majesty at your service. Welcome to Fair Queen Talks. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of my podcast, The New Normal. We've made it to July, and the summer people felt was cancelled is now back in business because the economy depends on it. Governments have prioritized the economy over scientific advice, which, I may remind you, is the whole reason we had a lockdown, are wearing masks, social distancing, and are living a life and a reality that has become the new normal. In today's episode, I want to discuss this new normal existence and the vibe 2020 is giving me. I want to share with you my perspective on the new normal and how it actually may be for your benefit, and why I think we are living in postmodernism. I was introduced to the idea of postmodernism at university, and it's been a concept I've had in my mind ever since. Postmodernism can be defined as a late 20th century style and concept in the arts, architecture, and criticism, which represents a departure from modernism and is categorized by the self-conscious use of earlier styles and conventions, a mixing of different artistic styles and media, and a general distrust of theories. In this sense, postmodernism is individual, and as individuals, we have the autonomy to decide for ourselves how we express ourselves through fashion. We decide what media to consume, and question ideologies that were taught to us as being a singular truth. If you look at what you dress, what you watch, and what you question, you will see that the person you are and the life you live has been influenced by so many things, but you have made a decision of what you take on in your personal life. Postmodernism is a Western philosophy, a late 20th century movement categorized by broad skepticism, subjectivism, or relativism, a general suspicion of reason, and an acute sensitivity to the role of ideology in asserting and maintaining political and economic power. This is why there are so many quote-unquote conspiracy theories and a big trust deficit. There is an absence of truth in this world for so many people. As a person of faith, I have to always assert that I live by faith. People who believe in things that are perceived as religious are aware that their belief can't always be explained or justified to those who don't understand their faith. The concept of faith is a big element and can't be argued with because it's what someone believes to be true. As you grow in faith, you can understand things better and therefore explain them better to others. But depending on where you are in your journey of faith, sometimes it's a simple fact of just trusting that what you believe is actually true. Postmodernism is a movement that focuses on the reality of the individuals, denies statements that claim to be true for all people, and is often expressed in a pared-down style in arts, literature, and culture. An example of a thought of postmodernism is the idea that not all people would see stealing as negative. The reason why it wouldn't be seen as negative could be because we don't know the context. What is classed as stealing? Is taking back something someone took from you that is classed as stealing something negative? Are people in extreme poverty trying to keep themselves alive by stealing a negative thing? Is stealing a necessarily bad thing when there are no other options for you to have access to water or food? These are questions to ask. Postmodernism focuses on the reality of the individual, and because of this, what is normal for you and what is normal for me is very different. The norm is defined as something that is considered normal and refers to something that is the usual, customary, or accepted standard. Saying please when you want something is an example of the norm. The new normal is no longer binary. Something that can be broken into two categories is binary. Binary means something close to dual or double. You can remember what binary is when you remember what bi means too. For example, black and white are often set up to be binary, as are light and dark, good and evil. The idea of something being normal and not normal is beginning to blur. The new normal is whatever is the norm for you. For example, years ago, being in a nuclear family was the norm, and if you didn't have that growing up, you were the odd one out. Now, family structures come in all sorts of ways, and there is no one way of being a family. I'm not saying that this is necessarily a bad thing. What I am saying is that this is the new normal. A nuclear family is a family where a father, mother, and their children live in one household. They flock together like objects around a nucleus, example, an atom. My family is nuclear in the sense that my husband and I are a heterosexual couple and have two dependent children and are regarded as a basic social unit. I've always wanted to have that because that was not my reality growing up. Not because I wanted to be like other children, but because I thought that all children were conceived by love. I say love because growing up, I was taught by my parents that they went to the hospital one day, saw a cute picture of me, and wanted to have me as their child, so they picked me. Such a sweet but false way of teaching people how they are conceived is not very beneficial in their adult life. Anyway, it seemed odd to me growing up with this false but sweet teaching that I was living with one parent and visited the other during the weekends and holidays. Nevertheless, I always felt my situation was normal, but different from other children. In 2020, the new normal, from my perspective, has expanded and enriched the autonomy we as individuals have over our lives. The new normal, to me, is a benefit to individuals because I don't think there is one way of being or one way of living. In my faith, there is a concept called the plan of happiness. I personally believe that happiness is subjective and different for everyone. And I truly believe that all people deserve to find their happiness in their lifetime. Now, of course, our happiness should not be at the cost of the lives of others, but truly be independent from things and come from within. So now I want to talk to you through some things that are the new normal and that you should actually embrace. Here we go. It's normal to not adhere or fall victim to beauty standards that are imposed by businesses that profit from your insecurities and that are curated by the wider media and conveniently have a solution that will cost you hours of hard work or a lifetime of hard work because you're trying to fix a botched job. It's normal to have emotions and to put yourself first, no matter how much others depend on you. It's normal not to be okay and not having to respond to the question of how you're doing with something that is not true, only to prove to others that you have got everything in order, or to give a standard response to a question people ask not to really find out about how you actually are, but just being polite and conversational. It's normal to stand up for what you believe and use your platform to share your voice to those who choose to interact with your content. It's normal to be honest with yourself and others. You have permission to be your authentic self and no longer have to hide your identity with others because in the end, you're only hurting yourself. It's normal not to fit in someone else's agenda, organization, business, or friendship group. You don't need to fit in to be accepted. You should and always can be yourself and find like minded people. It's normal to have a side hustle or two. Multiple streams of income is no longer just for the super rich or big businesses. COVID-19 is proving that you can't really rely on your 9 to 5 for your whole income. It's normal to, instead of spending your money on companies, to invest your money in companies. You no longer have to give your hard-earned money to businesses and be left with things that will break. You can invest in companies you love and make money on the money you work so hard on. It's normal to be involved in politics and be interested in your human rights. You can bring change as much as your politicians can. Being in my late 20s, I no longer feel like a little girl. I am a full-grown woman and I embrace who I am. I've been in a relationship with my husband since the age of 21 and I'm now 28. For some people, being married can feel like a trap, but for me, it has been very liberating and I feel free enough to be truly who I am. And who I am is always evolving. Looking back and reflecting on my young self, I think it's important to go through everything I went through to come to a point of self-acceptance and enjoy the evolution of myself. My wish is that everyone I know and who listens to this podcast to tap into their own greatness and accept how amazing they are now and how much more amazing you can become. It's normal to be your authentic self. It's normal to be different to those around you. It's normal to be you. At the end of each episode, I address the queendom. Postmodernism focuses on the reality of the individual. The norm is no longer binary. The norm is relative to your own circumstances. Stop giving your power, energy, and time to things that don't benefit you. You have to define what truth is to you. The new norm is you being you authentically. Thank you so much for listening to Fairy Queen Talks. See you next time.